Bringing another former senior politician into a suggestion that it is now time to leave the ECHR. This is being put forward by former Home Secretary and indeed former Attorney General Suella Braverman, who joins me now. Thank you very much. Good to see you again. Why and how would we leave the ECHR? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. Well, those are precisely the questions that I answer in my policy paper that I published yesterday with Prosperity Institute. The why, I think, is pretty easy to answer, and many of your listeners will be familiar with it. As Home Secretary, I wasn't able to deport a single illegal arrival who had arrived on small boats to our scheme in Rwanda because of the European Court of Human Rights. You'll remember that the court blocked the flights on the tarmac when we were trying to get the policy up and running. As Attorney General, I had to fix the law because of militant protesters who pulled down the Colston statue in BLM riots. They were charged with criminal damage, but they were acquitted because of their human rights. They pleaded human rights, and Articles 10 and 11 of the Convention acted as a defence. So we couldn't even convict militant protesters who had committed criminal damage. The ECHR is out of control. It's politicised, it's interventionist, and it's stopping us from controlling our borders and, importantly, protecting our veterans and our national security. So the why, I think, is very compelling and straightforward, and we've rehearsed it for a long time. It's the how that I think is more interesting and what we need to start talking about. And my paper and my film, I don't know if you had a chance to watch the summary of 10 minutes, if you don't have time to read the 52 pages, it sets out the how. It deals with the issue of Northern Ireland because the Belfast Good Friday Agreement makes reference to the European...
Well, you want it rewritten, don't you, Ms. Braverman?
Yeah, that's my plan. That's my proposal.
Good Lord. It took long enough to write it in the first place, didn't it?
Sorry?
It took long enough to get it written in the first place. Seeking to rewrite it, that's going to be quite a chore, quite a task, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying this is a walk in the park. I think with the right political will, these changes can be made. If you look at the history of the Belfast Agreement, it's been amended on several occasions in the last 2 decades, sometimes with the consent of all of the parties of Northern Ireland, sometimes without it. But in every instance, the UK Parliament has passed changes in our laws, the Northern Ireland Act, to change the functioning and substance of the Belfast Good Friday Agreement. So to suggest that it's somehow a sacrosanct document that is immune from any kind of change would be wrong and politically hollow. So we change and rewrite the Belfast Good Friday Agreement to erase the references to the European Convention on Human Rights therein. We trigger Article 58 to give the Council of Europe 6 months' notice of our departure. We pass laws in the UK Parliament, so we repeal the Human Rights Act. We make clear that the case law and the judgments from the Strasbourg Court no longer bind UK courts. We make some changes to our Scotland Act, our Wales Act, our agreement with the EU. We have to make changes to the Northern Ireland Protocol and the Windsor Framework, possibly even scrap them. But there's a plan.
Walk me through, Mrs. Braverman, walk me through what this would mean. So 40 people arrive in Dover this afternoon, and the United Kingdom has left the ECHR. So in the future, whenever this might happen, 40 people land on a rubber dinghy in Dover. What happens to them then that can't happen now?
Well, a huge amount more.
Such as?
So we'd have many more powers to actually detain these people. When I was Home Secretary, when I was Attorney General, and in fact even before that when I was a barrister defending the Home Office, I saw how legally constrained the Home Offices or the authorities are in even detaining some of these illegal arrivals, because almost on day one, the instant that the Home Office will take any step to detain, the illegal arrivals will take legal action.
So what will happen to those 40 people? They get detained, and then do they get sent back to Syria or Afghanistan, or what happens to them then?
So we would have greater powers of detention, number one, a massive advantage. Secondly, we'd have greater powers of removal. So we've not been able to remove foreign paedophiles or foreign terrorists because of their human rights. We weren't able to remove a foreign rapist back to Sri Lanka because he decided he was gay. So, he claimed human rights. So we'd be able to remove people. They wouldn't be able to rely on the distorted Article 8 argument or the distorted Article 3 argument.
But would it address the Channel boat crossings, Mrs. Braverman? Would it cut the Channel boat crossings? Because I've been speaking with David Lammy, and he seems motivated by the idea of these sanctions. He says that could be the solution. Is that the way forward?
Well, David Lammy's plan to stop the boats doesn't really inspire much confidence. I don't think David Lammy wants to stop the boats and takes it seriously, and he doesn't really have.
Why don't you think he's taking it seriously?
Because if he's coming out with an idea like sanctions, then it's laughable. Sanctions on countries are not going to stop illegal arrivals.
No. So it's sanctions on individuals. His claim is that many of these people, although they might be, to use his words, they may be on the ground in shell suits, but the people behind them are in business suits with big bank accounts in countries such as the United Kingdom, and that is why he's seeking to place sanctions on them and indeed freeze their accounts. Now, that seems slightly more practical than maybe possibly turning back a Sri Lankan rapist.
Well, the problem he'll encounter, again, I'm afraid, is our legal framework. Because the minute he attempts to take legal action against some of these controllers or organisers, he will come up against human rights. They will plead human rights. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it is exactly what happens. These people use human rights as a defence against legitimate border control.
So under Suella Braverman, we wouldn't have human rights?
No, I'm not saying that. We had human rights before the European Convention on Human Rights, and we'll have human rights afterwards. Before the European Convention, and what I propose in my paper, is that we have a very rich ecosystem of protections for the right to life, the right against torture, the right against unlawful detention, the right to free speech in our statute and in our common law. Very sophisticated, very evolved, far more developed than many other countries were when the European Convention came along. And actually, we have a very proud tradition that we should be confident about to protect human rights. And we don't need a foreign court, foreign judges, and an outdated system to tell us how to do so.
Last minute or so together. Nigel Farage said yesterday we need a bit of fear in society, and it's good to fear police officers. As a former Home Secretary, would you agree?
I do agree with that, actually, the sentiment, because I think there is a sense that amongst criminals that they can get away with bad behaviour. And whether it's vandalism, whether it's smoking cannabis, whether it's more serious crime, there is a sense that people can behave with impunity and they can cause harm, they can damage lives and their environment, and they can get away with it because they're never going to get caught. And even if they do, they'll just get a slap on the wrist. And there is this real brazen fearlessness amongst a certain niche of our community, the law-breaking part of our community. That needs to change. They need to feel fear of the law. They need to feel scared of law enforcement because that will be a deterrent.
You mentioned, lastly, vandalism. The people who've been taking part in these protests at the hotel in Epping, should they fear the law? Should they be behaving in that fashion? Has it been hijacked? Has a valid cause been hijacked by the right wing?
As far as I can see, that protest has been peaceful. I haven't been following it second by
police
second,
officers
have sustained
officers have sustained injuries. You may not be aware. But
right, I wasn't aware of that.
Okay.
What I've seen is that it has largely been peaceful. What I saw was images of families parading and a very strong sense of frustration and fear. People were saying that they're not far right to be peacefully protesting, and I agree with them on that. They are not. It is not far right to want to protect your daughters from illegal migrants who are rapists.
Yes, but you are aware that there have been flares fired at the hotel and at police officers.
I wasn't aware of that. If there has been any breach of the law, then the police must act. That is unacceptable, whoever's doing it.